The 2025 NZ On Air John O'Shea Memorial Address, in conversation with Taualeo'o Stephen Stehlin, was recorded live at the 2025 Spada Conference.
John O'Shea championed an independent New Zealand screen industry from the beginning of his career. As a co-director of Pacific Film Productions for over 3 decades, there's a theme here, 3 decades, O'Shea's name would become synonymous with Pacific Films. The company produced newsreels, training films, sponsored documentaries, road safety films, television commercials, and sports events. Pacific Films became a fertile training ground for young filmmakers, a sort of al fresco film school, as O'Shea put it. Many of the staff went on to win renown. Today's speaker has very, very many similarities to O'Shea. He's produced Tagata Pasifika for over 3 decades, initially at TVNZ and since 2018 through his and Ngaire and John's production company, Sunpix. One of New Zealand's longest running shows, it is described as a Pacific voice by Pacific people. The program covers news, arts and politics involving Pacific people in Aotearoa. It has undoubtedly developed a huge number of young Pacifica content creators over the years. Our guest has also been actively involved in many organisations, including the Pacific Islands Media Association, and is a board member of both the National Pacific Radio Trust and the Auckland University of Technology Council. He holds the title of Taualeo'o from his grandmother's village, and he was awarded an MNZ honour for services to Pacific arts and television in 2008. Ladies and gents, I'm delighted to announce that today's John O'Shea Memorial Address is in conversation with the wonderful Stephen Stehlin.
Noea, Ngaire. She's been here forever. I met you on the drama department Xerox machine in 1988. You were 19 and I was 21. It's amazing.
I think his memory might be a little bit off there, a bit of wishful thinking. But anyway, it's lovely to be here, especially part of this John O'Shea Memorial. It's a real privilege for us because we experienced his legacy.
We did. We knew him, and he would visit Māori programs, and you knew him.
Through Ernie and Phi.
Through Ernie and Phi, and I got to know him because of his lifetime companion, who was my old friend that I grew up in Manarewa. His name was Brendan Crosby, and Brendan, bless his soul, he died in 2014, but he taught me how to smoke cigarettes. And I just kept on trying. I was just going to vomit. This is in Churchill Avenue in Manarewa. He was 3 years older than me, so I really looked up to him. And my last memory of John O'Shea was at a club, and I said, I'll see you boys later. And he said, I'm so glad you called me boy. So it was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
Shush.
Anyway, we're a bit like an old married couple, really, because we have worked with each other for so long. So there might be a little bit of banter and stick, but it's not disrespectful.
No, it's not
He can put up with it.
I have to, actually. I've got no choice. We did a DNA test, when was that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
And horror of horrors. Ngaire's from Rotuma. So Ngaire's father is from Rotuma. And then we were going through our list of DNA relatives. We found that we were related? How is this possible?
The Pacific is small.
It is. It's a small world. It's a bit like our small world right here. And the fact that we both knew John and on a personal level, we know all you, and I'm looking around the room to see if there's anybody older than me. I'm so glad Tony Holden's just over there. Robin Scholes is there. So, I'm not the oldest.
Okay, so should we kick in?
I guess. I thought you were going to bring your laptop.
No, I'm not
You were
going
late.
to.
She was making me sweat a little bit. Irene was calming my nerves. Yeah.
Okay. So,
All right.
okay, talking about Tagata Pasifika.
Yes.
How did it start for you?
Oh, well, I was working at tolls. You know, remember tolls when people would have to call an operator to make a call to Wellington or to
Just
Coversation?
in 30 seconds.
Ah, shoot. Okay. Yes, I got a call to be a producer's assistant, having failed to get in as a researcher for news. I was praying. I got the job, and I was going to be a trainee producer's assistant, and I was praying, because I didn't know where I was going to go, and they said, you're going into Māori programs, because I thought they were going to put me into sport, and that would be a marriage made in hell for me. So I went in there, and it was amazing. So are you hurrying me up, Ngaire Fuata?
Oh, no,
like
no,
usual.
no.
Anyway, so I actually started on koha. And Raymond Waru had just left, and the late, help me here, Moirehu McDonald was my first producer. So, you know, they took me into Māori programs, which I heard guitars, singing, and
Laughter.
they said laughter. And they said, here's your desk. I had a Canon typewriter because I did scripts. Here's your Canon typewriter. The others had manuals. And here's your phone, and here's your ashtray. And I thought, I have died and gone to heaven. This is fantastic. Yeah. So that was my start in Māori programs. And then I thought, you know, what is this little show, Tagata Pasifika? And Michael Evans was the producer. So I said to Michael, because they were auditioning for a little part of the program called Community Report, and I said, oh, could I please audition? And he said to me, oh, no, you're the wrong race. I went, sorry? He said, no, you're Māori. I went, I'm sorry to disappoint you here. But I'm actually Samoan. My dad's Samoan. So...
But did you get it?
no, I didn't know. Thanks for bringing that up. No. Floor manager, who will remain nameless, said to me, oh, you might as well give up now. You'll never make it. So then I thought, well, if I can't do that, maybe I should be a producer. So that was the beginning.
And how's it been over 40 years?
Challenging. It has been challenging. And, you know, we get so used to our small world. So it's kind of great. I see Dana is in the audience. James is introducing us so that, you know, our small world is beginning to get bigger. So we're going global, but we've started in our own backyard. So in the beginning, it was just New Zealand Pacific communities, but over time, we reached out into the Pacific, so that those relationships have been a key thing for us, and they continue. I mean, I haven't been working for a year, you tell me.
But it's really important, isn't it, for our Pacific community? Don't you think they feel like they own the show?
Oh, well, they totally own the show. They didn't even know what platform it was on. It was their show. And I've got to thank New Zealand On Air and a television manager by the name of Jane Wrightson at the time. I applied for extra funding to do video journalism with a high-H camera. And I said, and she said, why are you doing this? And I said, because there's news and current affairs expectations of this show, which was, in those days, under special interest. And she said, prove it. So then I called the ministry, and I talked to the late and wonderful Louisa Crawley. And so we did a call out to the community. And you know what? They came in their hundreds to support the show. And we did that everywhere. And she was one of the first who taught me how to handle a crowd and how to pick out people. And she used to whisper, don't take any notice of that one, you know, let me handle them. Let me handle them. So it was a very early lesson in how to engage with your audience. So it's a bit of a generalization, but most producers don't meet their audience. And it was a face-to-face personal relationship. that other people found difficult to understand, but it was real, and it was, I would say, it was personal, because they know your family. I mean, it's horrifying. They go, who's your mother again? Who's your father? So it was a marvellous progression from that, from those early days of getting to know the audience, and and also changing things up. So for example, one of the first things that we had to deal with as a community was the AIDS epidemic. And how do you tell a conservative Christian ongoing community about condoms? Well, you could talk about it, and we did. So that was a beginning of my relationship with Fuimono Kaupuloto Indaman, who is still at 75 years old, still fighting hard for equity, and he's from a nursing background and a whakawhengi background, bringing light to these, these people who are live in the shadows. So that was a big thing for me, being gay myself. I thought, oh my gosh, how can I possibly do this? And then I've suddenly got this notoriety, but we were kind of lucky in a way, because we were flying under the radar. So these days we come under journalism, but in those days we were a community show, which means that we could do anything, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, we incorporated drama,
Yes.
comedy, Tali's Angels,
Oh, yes.
Bertha and Buckwheat,
The Brownies.
the Brownies. What else did we do?
Oh, we did a lot of things that you would not say were journalism.
Oh, the Tala Pacific.
Oh, the Tagata Pasifika. So that was a conversation with the late Pomau Papali'i. That is the brother of the great Ramona Papali'i, who was the first presenter of See Here. She's still up in Kaitaia. I tried to beg her to come down for our 20th anniversary, and she said, oh, I'm so in the country now, because he was married to Pete Smith, and they were living, I don't know, somewhere around
Up
east,
north.
way up north, up Ahipara, somewhere around there. She said, well, the nearest I get to is outside contact is when the horse puts its head through the kitchen window. So she was great. So Pomau said to me, we come from a storytelling cultures, but we have no dramas on air. So then I said, Pomau, we should just do it. We should just get some people. We know we've got the writers. And so we had this terribly laborious steering committee, and we got people who knew how to write. People like Rachel from Shortland Street, Brian Edwardsworth, help me. Jude, yeah. Judy Kellingham. And so we developed some scripts. And then what we did was, we couldn't do it. I had no experience. So we handed it over to Don Selwyn and Heitonga Films. And then they created opportunities. So it was kind of like going out of our patch, but also creating opportunities for young Pacific directors, or even if they weren't directors, they could just sort of tag along. So
And it was the starting base for a lot of careers.
Oh, it was, yeah. So Lisa Tauma
Mario.
and Mario and
Chappelle.
Oh gosh.
The Browns.
Yeah.
Yellow.
So I guess when you get into our small world and you think of creating opportunities and going global, and that, it was really just in the beginning. It was just getting out of Auckland was nice. Well, I don't know how many people said to us, "Oh, you're not Tagata Pasifika, you're Tagata Okalani."
Or Tagata Hamoa.
Oh, Tagata Hamoa. That's the other thing. Seven Pacific groups who were unevenly distributed, and so it has been challenging over time. But
And how important has language been within the show?
So when you've got 7 languages, it's important, but it's hard. So, but I think you might remember sometimes the most moving stories are the most simple stories. And if you remember Forole Morianga, the woman who died after her electricity was cut, and there was all this high news value, and the poor husband was always having a difficult time expressing himself. So I got my cousin, who could speak really, really well, and she's actually quite empathetic at times when I give her a bit of pressure. So yeah, that's my cousin Rita, and so we did kind of like a 2-camera shoot, and we did a whole half hour. It was just this poor man who up until now had been portrayed as unable to express himself. Well, he wasn't portrayed as that, but because his English was so poor. But when he could speak his own language, he was poetic, and it was one of the most moving memories I have of our community.
Yeah, and how have you? You've pushed through. We've managed to do a lot within those 38 years. What's kept driving you?
Oh, well, survival, but also those early days of meeting the community. I've hardly been to Wellington, let alone Auckland. But when I had the ministry people with me, and they had my back, and then I saw these people, and we continually asked them, "Well, what do you want?" And they continually told us, "We want more, and in prime time." And so these community meetings became bitter. People were getting angry. So what did we do, Ngaire? You tell us. We cut out the questions. We said, if you want to have any questions, come and see us. But in the meantime, have something to eat and something to drink. So
it became a party.
It became a big party.
Just come and meet us, have a party.
So it was kind of nice to put that on. It was in its time. And I remember once TVNZ said to me, yes, you can use the atrium, but be careful of that baby grand piano. So I left to go downstairs, and I came back, and Lisa's dad, Peter, Tauma, was playing the piano with a drag queen sitting on top and a row of beer cans. I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm just so gonna die with TVNZ. That happened a couple of times actually. It happened. Oh my God! What we were doing? Oh yeah, the laughing salmons.
We would get into trouble a bit.
The laughing salmons could have sort of crying salmons sometimes because, we needed a sequence in a very fancy boardroom. So I begged sales and marketing if I could use their very flash boardroom, and they were. It was 2 comedians talking to Suzanne Paul, and they end up having a food fight. And I couldn't fit in there, and I went into this boardroom that I promised to leave pristine, and there's food all over, there's chocolate cake all over the table, and anyway, I paid the cleaners to please make this pristine.
So it was often stressful.
Yes.
And fun.
It was
But,
a load of fun.
how did you keep sane?
I didn't. No, sometimes I have to tell you the truth. I was severely challenged, but he's not here. But Adrian Stehlin said, would always call me the last man standing. So you can take from that what you will.
So you've helped so many people along the way, if you think about it. You've also been Heartbreak Hotel.
Oh, God. I think my mother or my grandmother wanted me to be a priest. And I said,
but you were.
It was kind of like a confessional of TVNZ, of our little group, and Māori programs. Very protective of Māori programs because they were the ones who gave me a start. But yeah, it was.
And how important was that in terms of being included with Māori in?
Oh, we couldn't have done it without riding on the coattails of the Māori department, whai, Ernie, but whai, 6 months into my 3-month contract, they made the first producer was Michael Evans, who was made redundant. So I cheekily applied to be producer. And Whai was so kind to actually give me an interview. He said, just wait a bit. Yeah. You're a wee bit green. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what else? What were the biggest challenges for you, do you think?
Balancing up the needs of the community. Also, in those days, people meters were around, and we never figured in the people meters. Never. And then, you try and get sponsorship from people, commercial operations, what I say, what are your ratings? I was too embarrassed to tell them. So then I thought, why are they so poor? And I kept on asking, how many Pacific homes are you measuring? You've got 400 people meters around the country, but how many Pacific homes? And they dodged, and I forget who the company was. It's changed so many times. But in the end, they told me it was 7. And I said, well, they could all be at the same funeral and we'll just have nobody watching.
Yeah, but I guess times have changed, and now we can actually, with the internet, we are global. Within, our show is, and our items are. And how, we know that, we can see the figures tick over, but we can also see it when we go out to the islands and we go out to the community. Well,
that's true. And the first time I realised that was that, like people would say to me, oh, Tagata Pasifika, I've heard of that, but I'd really watch it, but I don't understand the language. I say, oh, you don't understand English? But anyway, my first instance of, the pull of the show was going to Christchurch with Susanna Hukui, and we were mobbed in Christchurch because of her. And she was picked up by Sitivini Rambuka in Queensland because she was known in the Pacific as well. So there was that. There was a time I went to Whakatane, and I don't know why we were recording sports or rugby or something. And then I heard, Tagata Pasifika, Tagata Pasifika. And it was your father. And he came running up, and he kind of recognised us. It was so weird.
Oh, he was such a big fan of the show.
Yeah, but it was in a little town like Whakatane. Yeah, so...
And what about going live? We went live so many times. Can you remember any sort of really hilarious moments?
Well, the reason we went live is because we used to record the show on a Friday and we'd go to air on a Sunday, so our news was probably at least a week old by the time we got there. And in Tahiti, they were having demonstrations, and they set fire to the airport. And Marae, Derek Wister, bless his soul, was going live to Tahiti, and I thought, oh shit, we should be doing that. So that's how we became live. I thought, well, there are expectations that we should be covering this, and I can't cover it if I'm not live. It's changed a bit since then because the internet's even more live.
Yeah. Now that you stepped back a little bit, but you're still part of the company and you're still doing work out there, and you've been EP for this fabulous feature film, Mysterious Ways, and you've also had a nearly award-winning cameo performance as next to Michael Hurst.
Oh, stop it, please, Naomi, no. Oh.
And also your EP for the new Tenor.
That's Dana over there. She roped me in. There's someone world domination going on here. But thank you, Dana. If you say the Patti brothers, it doesn't really mean much. But if I told you it was about Solomio, you'll know who these brothers are, and they're at the top of their game now. This documentary's taken 3 years. It is global. It is amazing. And, during COVID, I can't remember, but I think we went down to New Zealand on air, and we were say, well, you've got a Taki Māori, where's your Pacific strategy? And he said, well, good question. Why don't you write it? I went, oh, shit. Okay. Okay. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work on a big feature documentary like this. So Rebecca has managed to keep a hold of this beast called Tena. My name is Pati. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work on it, because every time I watch it, I just get moved.
And when's it released?
March of next year. So look out for it. Tena. It is a worldwide release, and it's also it's a worldwide story. So it's about two brothers from Samoa, raised in Māngere, who are now in such demand, you never know where they are. So the documentary goes from Paris to London to Berlin to San Francisco to the Met in New York and Māngere and Samoa. So it's a marvelous thing.
And how important are those partnerships?
Well, I think they're incredibly important, as Irene said, that on a much more grander scale, that is the only way we can do it. And in our small world, we have been going to the FIFA conference representing TVNZ. I don't know if TVNZ knew that, but that's what I said we were doing. And but we've forged alliances with those Europeans, and in those days, this film fest, it's a documentary film festival. It was basically Europeans coming to Tahiti for a holiday in the middle of winter. But it's become a truly indigenous film festival. So that's how we've become a little bit global, is just looking into our own front yard, which is the Pacific.
And how important has Pacific storytelling become here in Aotearoa?
Well, I think, I'm so old. I think I'm even older than Irene. Irene recently wrote somewhere, must have been Facebook or something, she said, the thing is, you've got to realise that we were born 15 years after the Second World War. And, no, well, I was born 12 years, so there. So,
see, maths was not as strong.
oh, did you know Ngaire Fuata? Did you know that Mrs. Fraser here doesn't have a brain? She's got a spreadsheet in her. Where everybody else has a brain, she's got a spreadsheet that can look at a budget and go, no, that's all right.
Except I don't know what time we're at.
I don't know either. Have we bored you? Let us know. Yeah, so we were born there, so we were almost excusing ourselves for being here. My early memories of working at Westfield Freezing Works is finding an overstayer and taking him to my grandfather, who was the trade commissioner for Samoa at the time. And he said, come here. He said, don't you ever do that again. You put him in danger and you put me in danger. Bring him to me at home. So it was kind of from the Dawn raids that we all know about now. And remember, good on Oscar for writing the play. The playwrights and the expression of our identity is manifested in many different ways, but it starts there.
Yeah, and films like Sonia's Wedding and I think Three Wise Cousins and now Tina have found
and Pinky Pongi.
Yeah, and Pinky Pongi have found this global audience.
Yes.
What do you think the future is for Pacific storytelling on that big screen?
Yeah, so I think it's much more democratized, but at the same time, it's lower cost. And so they're trying to find a way in there, like forcing the big streamers and that to actually contribute something to us, to our industry is important. who would have thought that little TP would have such enormous numbers on our, which we still don't own, our YouTube
That's another
page.
story.
Yeah, that's another story. Yeah, but anyway, it's really reinforced what we knew beforehand, that there is an audience out there. They are interested. It's just getting through with partnerships. And one of the biggest partnerships that we have is with
Pasifika TV.
With Pasifika TV. So we end up being EPs on, development of Pacific broadcasters. You think TP is poor? Try being in the Cook Islands and you're doing the news and you're trying to do a funded show, not funded by New Zealand On Air, funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Yeah, so, and that just shows you. So the Pasifika TV, which used to be the old Pacific Service, is funded by the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and Trade, and that is kind of like a soft power, soft diplomacy in the Pacific, and that's important. But the only reason it became important was because the Aussies started giving up free content in the Pacific. So,
and we contribute a lot.
We do.
Aotearoa.
We do.
In terms of
Amazing amount. Look at Papa Treva. She's constantly taking on an extra couple of days if she's in the Solomon Islands, for example, trying to upskill people and give them an opportunity, which has probably been our story as well.
And so for any young burgeoning producer, what advice would you give?
Don't. Find something else to do. Look, I get a little bit tortured by this, but these young hopefuls, I always have a cup of coffee with them and try to find out what they're really interested in. And when it's I want to be a writer, or I want to have a skill like that, but if I want to be a presenter, don't bother. The competition is so high, but you can do stuff in your own bedroom these days and still get a huge and paying audience.
Well, you've always been an early adopter of technology,
Yes.
which has definitely helped the progression of the show. What do you think of AI?
Oh, I think it's another tool, but I'm not sure. I'm a little bit nervous about it. What do you think about ChatGPT and putting in a proposal into Cam?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so no, I think that it's just another tool, and I think that it's really easy to see AI slop around the place. Really easy.
What do you think the future is going to be like for the industry?
Yeah, so I
How do
think
you
that.
feel?
Well, I've had the good fortune to have worked through the good times and the shrinking times, and so I just think we're just changing shape at the moment. But I think all our work is predicated on our relationships. And if you can't keep a relationship going, then you can't do it by yourself. You can't do anything by yourself. I could not do TP without you. Isn't that nice? We're having a little mutual admiration society
He
going on
doesn't do
here.
that often.
Yeah, so I think are we done? Have we done 40 minutes yet, Ari?
Yes, you are done. You can say something profound, and then James will wind you up.
Oh, thank you.
All
There you
right.
go, Stephen. Say something profound.
Something profound?
It might be a bit hard, but
38 years. Oh my goodness. It's been a long time. No, I think I just say to the kids coming through and are trying to get a chance, just keep at it, follow your dreams, and don't give up. If I was able to, if a tall mole like me could get a job and manage to hoodwink a whole lot of people into being a producer, anybody can do it.
well, thank you for all your service and your work.
Thank you.
You've opened the doors for so many of us. You've produced incredible things. You've pushed through. And we are very grateful
Oh,
for
thank you.
everything that you've done for us.
Oh, thank you, Ngaire. I'll pay you later.
Fifth day, Uncle. They were saying, can you go just stand by the side and rush down that? I was like, are you aware of the Samoan rules? That is a chief on stage. I can't brush him off. Besides, he's about to drop some of the most important industry wisdom we've ever heard. If you do stuff in your bedroom, you can get a huge audience. Stephen Stehlin, 2025. Young producers out there, take notes. Also, just to clarify, the Brownies are a comedic comedy duo from the early 2000s. Velamanuseta and Canada Brown. I saw some of you tense when they're like, and of course the Brownies, they were like, we can say that now? Like, it's...
Yes, they were.
They're very important in the history of Pacific performance.
Bella, yeah.
Vela in Canada. Thank you, Ngaire. Thank you, Stella.